Hey everyone, Tamara here with Yogi Gardens, and today I am talking to you all about trellising your squash plants. Now, if you're like me, whenever I heard about this, my mind was completely blown because I had no idea that you could trellis your squash or your zucchini. Um, Absolutely no clue. And all you're gonna need is a bamboo stake, something like this. Try to get something a little thicker. Some pruning snips because we're going to be cutting away some of these leaves, and either some garden string or some twisty ties. Um, this is what I'm using today, but you can definitely use garden string if that's what you have available. Oh, and you'll need some scissors to cut the twisty tie. So let's get into this video. All right, so I'm first just gonna start by trimming back some of these leaves. We really don't need all of these leaves, and they do grow so quickly. I mean, I come out here within a couple days and I have this whole thing full of leaves again after I've trimmed them all back. So we really don't need them. They're just taking, don't cut all of them back, but you can cut some of them.
So these leaves are really just taking this plant's energy, and so what happens is it sends all of its energy into producing these massive leaves and not as much energy into producing the fruit of the plant. And that's what's really important, right? So we really just want to get rid of these leaves so that we can prevent that, and also so this creates a lot more airflow when you get rid of these huge leaves like this, which is just all around beneficial for the plant.
And we especially want to cut along the bottom here because, I find that a lot of times the bottom leaves is what starts to introduce diseases. Zucchini plants struggle with powdery mildew, things like that. So you really want to get some of this out of the way. And we do want to use sterilized snips. They also will often get, discolored, and leaves will sometimes turn yellow or start to just completely rot, especially when they're not in the sun. Like this one, you can see discolored, not a happy leaf. So we want to toss them away. All right, so now that I can actually see what's going on here, we're gonna start to lift this up and attach him to the trellis. All right, so I'm just gonna trim this guy off. Didn't even see him from all of the leaves. Get my twisty tie. I want it to be a pretty long piece because this is already growing big. Snip it off.
So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and cut back some of these leaves. Again, we don't need them. They're just kind of in the way and they're weighing down the plant. And I want this plant to grow up nice, and cutting some of this back will also take away from just all the added weight. So we want to cut most of the leaves on the bottom of wherever your flowers are growing, and leave the leaves towards the top.
So here we have one that is completely on the ground, as you can see, and it'll just keep growing out here. And if we can actually vine him up to sit up like this is just gonna be a whole lot better. It's easier to take care of, And then a lot of times what will happen is I can't ever see the fruit underneath these things because the leaves are so big. All right, so first I'm gonna place my bamboo stake in here so that it can trellis on. And then I'm just gonna tie him up like so. Super simple. I'm just gonna tie it in a knot back here. And then we're just gonna come in here and cut some of these leaves out. So as you can see, there's already some ties here that I've been training this to grow up on. But I still need to get him up here more. So I'm just going to use the zip tie and kind of pull him up. Not zip tie, twisty tie. That should hold him up. And then we'll come in here and maybe cut a couple more of these leaves. So I actually planted these so close together by complete mistake. Usually when you want to, plant your squash plants or zucchini plants, you want to space them out pretty far. And the only reason why I ended up having them so close together to begin with is simply because I planted a bunch of seeds indoors, thought I'd get a jump start. Think that I left them too long in their little seed cells, and so once I came to plant them outside, they just kind of got diseased and died. We also had a couple cold spells, so that could have had something to do with it, but either way, they all freaking died. And I was so agitated that I'm like, you know what, I am just gonna plant a bazillion of these, and one of them is surely to succeed. Well, all of them succeeded that time. So then I ended up with a ton of zucchini plants planted all really close together and trying to figure out what I could do. And I stumbled across a couple videos of trellising this up some kind of stake, and I did have a bunch of bamboo stakes, so I was like, I'll just use that and hope for the best. And I've been trimming back a lot of the leaves, and it's really seemed to work so far very, very well. A lot of these leaves in the past, I've noticed, especially the ones at the bottom, will get diseased and rot and die because they're not getting any sun, and then they're just sitting on wet ground. And what happens is those diseases and the decay, it starts to creep up to the rest of your plant. And these are also known for powdery mildew as well. And what happens is, when these huge, these leaves are huge, and you can tell, the ones that I'm cutting off, they're ginormous. So, and these grow within a couple days, and you can already see there's a bunch of weird little spots on this leaf, and this was only after a few days of being planted here. So, I highly recommend this way. It has definitely been successful for me thus far. It's also helped to keep pests away, which is pretty freaking cool because, usually they're munching all over the leaves, and since I'm trimming most of the leaves back, I haven't had to deal with many pests. So that's also a great thing about this method. But this was a total mistake, completely did this on accident, and that's kind of how gardening is. Sometimes we do something and we're like, oh crap, what what are we gonna do now? And then we learn and we experiment, and it's all learning and growing, right? So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you've learned something, and that maybe you try this and also have success with it. So if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, happy gardening. I'm going to trim a bunch more of these leaves off, but I won't bore you with that. So.